Hey guys, welcome to The Daily Athlete. This is episode number 23. Continuing on from our knee dysfunction assessment from our previous episode. Today we're going to be working on the hip, the quads, adductors, and also glute activation as well in terms of how they interact with the knee and how they help our knee to track. So pen and paper out. Otherwise, make sure you take notes on the video so that you know which exercises you've already smashed through and the ones that you need to go through after you've watched this episode. So the first one we're going to go through is the couch stretch. Now this is one we've been through on previous episodes, but I want to show you how this ties into knees and any issues you're having with your knee. So with our knees, we have our VMO, so vastus medialis, rectus femoris, vastus lateralis, vastus intermedius, which runs underneath. So there are four quads which run up into our patella tendon, which runs down to above the kneecap, around and connects up to our tibia at the front there. Now, when our quads tighten up, so if we've had a hard workout, most people will be quad dominant purely because of the way we sit and move around most of the day. So lots of people will lack posterior chain activation, so glute hamstring will be very quad dominant. Now, when these get overloaded and used all the time, so in training, in day-to-day life, what happens is they tighten up and they start to shorten. These quads, so our rectus femoris connects up to the top of our kneecap and also connects up into the top of our hip as well. So when this muscle starts to tighten up and the quads start to contract and shorten as they get tight and get used, what happens is this patella tendon is still attached here, so the anchor point is still there. Now as these quads get shorter, this patella tendon gets longer. So the tension on the tendon is actually increased, which puts a lot of stress through there, which is a common for patella tendinosis or patella tendonitis. It's going to give you issues around the knee. Okay, so the short-term fix, you can grab your foam roller and roll out your quads. That will give you a temporary fix. That's only going to last for so long. So if you're getting massage or dry needling, things like that to help loosen it off, it's only a surface level fix. It's not a long-term fix. The long-term fix, number one, to help get these things working a lot better, is to be able to stretch your rectus femoris out so that it's open and it's able to flex the hip as well as what it is able to when you're running, when you're walking, when you're riding, when you are weight training, when you're squatting, whatever you're doing, okay? So what we're going to do for this one, we need to make sure that, I have run through it before, but I'll give you a brief rundown. We need to get our back knee in the corner of the wall, stage one. Stage two, we then need to get our leg out in front. So if it's out to the side to start off with, that's cool. Stage three, we're going to try and get it straight. Stage four, we want to be able to pull up nice and tight. Now, when we're doing that, what we need to make sure is that we're staying at a consistent pain threshold. It is quite a painful stretch if it is tight for you. So what we need to make sure is that you're holding at, say, 80% pain threshold, not peaking at 100% and bouncing in and out of the stretch. We want a consistent stretch there. So you're going to hold for 2 minutes on each side and you'll see noticeable change before and after. So this will help to release a little bit of the tension off your patella tendon and give you some relief. So starting to stretch out that rectus femoris. That's number one with the couch stretch. Number two, the next thing that we can work on in terms of how this knee is tracking is our adductors. So these are the muscles on the inside of our legs. Now, for most people as well, these will be fairly tight, similar to the hip, okay? Purely because of the way we move, the things that we do on a day-to-day basis. So when these adductors are tight, what that means is that it's not going to allow our knee to track over our toes as well as what we would like. Specifically, if you have a wider squat stance or you have a wider stance in general, what that's going to mean is that these knees are pulled into each other because these adductors are tight. It's not going to allow you to push these knees out as far as they can possibly go because there's going to be restriction on the inside here. So what we need to work on is stretching out these adductors. Now there are some mobility exercises you can do with a foam roller to be able to loosen these off. One that you can do without any equipment at all is actually taking a wider stance than what you would normally squat with, making sure that your feet are straight, squatting to as deep as you can go, and then putting our elbows on the inside and pushing our knees right out so that they're tracking over our toes. And what you'll notice there is that you'll start to get a nice stretch if your adductors are tight through your groin, through the inside of your legs there, okay? So we want to make sure that we can stretch that area out. So that will be quite painful, or not painful, but uncomfortable. Want to make sure there's going to be a little bit of discomfort there. So making sure that we can keep your chest up, we can go as deep as possible, push those knees right out so that they're tracking where we want them to track. If this is an issue for you, what you'll find is when you're squatting and when you're moving, when you get to a certain point, you have your legs out at a certain width, your knees are being drawn in, okay, together. So you'll find that when you get maybe at the top of the squat, you're fine. When you get to the bottom of the squat, maybe they start to draw in like that because you're tight through here and you just can't get them out, okay? So that's one thing to work on there with your adductors. So number 1, couch stretch. Number 2, adductors. Number 3, glute activation. Let me grab my band. What we're going to do is we're going to go through a glute activation exercise to get your glutes going. So there are heaps out there to help you. We need to get your glute med working, so glute medius, which is this little one on the side here. It's more of a postural muscle, okay? So glute max will always do most of the work. Glute med is helping the tracking of our knee. What glute med does is helps to pull our thighs away from each other so that when we're walking along, when we're running, they don't collapse in, okay? If this muscle isn't strong, when we're put under load, or under intensity, so running, explosive sports, weightlifting, etc., what happens is that muscle will really be tested. So if it's not working properly, the knees will be pulled in purely because the thighs are being pulled in, okay? So the way we get that sorted is grab a resistance band, so full size, a fairly loose one, or not too tight. Loop that over and double it over. Now what we're going to do is band around the knees. You're going to lay on your back, head nice and flat, core nice and tight, back push to the floor, knees out, tracking over the toes so there's resistance on the band. Then what we're going to be doing is pushing our hips up, okay? And that's it. So we're focusing on keeping those knees over our toes, so making sure that the band is pulled out, there's resistance on that band. We're also making sure that we're contracting our glutes as much as possible, okay? So making sure that we're squeezing that bum towards the top and we're able to lock those hips out. The purpose of the band, if we do it without the band, it will work mostly your glute max. If we do it with the band, it will help to get that glute med working, which is that little one on the side. So it's a little bit of a bonus, a 2-in-1. So make sure you use the resistance band to give that one a crack. The other thing that glute activation is going to do as well, it's going to start to get your posterior chain working. Now what that means is that the load on your quads is going to be reduced because now we have the glutes, the hamstrings and the quads working rather than the quads trying to take over and do all the work. So when you're training, you're going to be a lot stronger, be able to be a lot more powerful, move a lot faster, whether that's weight training, running, walking, whatever your sport is. Going to be able to move a lot more efficiently, expend a lot less energy, but get more output at the same time. So what's this going to mean for your knees is that your quads aren't going to load up as much. These aren't going to get as tight and shrink, which means there's going to be less load on that patella tendon going around your knee. So there's going to be less issues there. Okay, so number 1, couch stretch, 2 minutes on each side. Oh, sorry, number 1, couch stretch, 2 minutes on each side. Number 2, making sure that we lengthen out the rectus femoris with our couch stretch. Number 2, I'm getting confused now. Adductors, trying to stay in order. Getting these adductors to work. So feet straight, sitting at the bottom of the squat, pushing those knees out, chest up nice and high. Start off with that. Number 3, glute bridges. So we can work on, say, 4 sets of 12 glute bridges. Now these need to be done daily, okay, these exercises. To be able to see progress with them, they need to be done on a daily basis to make sure that it's progressing, we're building on it. Like with your training, you can't train once a week and expect to, or you can't train once a week and train different movements and expect to get results. We need consistency with the movements to be able to improve. So give those ones a crack. Next episode, we're going to be focusing on movement, so we'll go through that. So have a crack with them and see how you go.